who represent their communities to step up and work with me on solving this crisis. The community must be on board, and our response must be proportionate and not alienate the very communities we are trying to protect. My goal is termed Operation Take Back, which is to eliminate violent behavior, drug trafficking, and gang-related activity, provide a safe environment free of crime so law-abiding citizens can live, work, and enjoy a decent standard of living. I've met with stakeholders, reviewed the reports, strategies, and views of those in the field. We clearly need to do something different, and the question is, how far do we want to go? We cannot allow the less than 1,000 gang members to hold the community hostage and continue their behavior. It has to stop. We have to provide viable options to those in the next generation who are vulnerable to following the path of a life of crime and antisocial behavior. We have to tackle the scourge of drugs and the effects they have on our community, and this includes alcohol. Our objective is to introduce a comprehensive multi-agency national strategic plan to mitigate violence, drug trafficking, and drug-related activities, particularly in targeted high-crime neighborhoods. The ministry will take the lead in implementing the national strategic plan. The plan provides the blueprint for meeting our goals. We need to mobilize community residents in the targeted areas to assist law enforcement in identifying and removing violent offenders. This is my highest priority. I want the community to feel and be safe. I don't just want a strategy, I want results. I will close the borders to drugs and weapons. This will involve a multi-agency approach with the police, Coast Guard, and customs to ensure that there are sufficient resources, including dogs and officers, at all points of entry to our island. I will cut off the supply of both drugs and weapons. I will target the high crime neighborhoods where residents live in fear. This will be done one neighborhood at a time. I intend to turn the tables on what is happening in our communities. Get on top of this antisocial behavior in our neighborhoods. We will provide police community support in those neighborhoods that have an active police presence, and that those that engage in criminal activity face the full force of the law. We will not stop until those negative elements have been eradicated from the neighborhood, and will continue to provide support to the neighborhood to ensure that those negative elements do not return. I will turn the table on gangs. I will not allow less than 1,000 people to hold our island hostage. Gang members who are involved in criminal activities will have two options: remediation or incarceration. Family support. I will ensure that government agencies provide the support to the vulnerable youth and families who are most at risk. Resources. I will review the resources that are needed of government so we could employ the customs, police, and Royal Bermuda Regiment and do what I can to ensure that they have the resources that they need to carry out their duties. There are a number of other consequential matters that I am reviewing, including the banning of tinted visors and other options to eradicate drink and drug driving in Bermuda. Again, I stress that this is not an enforcement issue. We all have a role to play, and we must actively do so. This includes our clubs, our churches, community activists, whoever is a part of our community and is concerned about our community. You are all being called to take part. We will all face some discomfort from the measures that I propose. However, this is a small price to pay to save a life. You will see that the Ministry of National Security Gang Violence Reduction Coordinator Bishop Leroy Bean and the Commissioner of Police are here, feeling the same thing that I'm talking about tonight. They will each share with you some details of the programs, policy, and initiatives that they are currently in place to combat violent crime in Bermuda. That is the only way we can begin to move toward healing and restoration in the community. It is my hope that when this town hall meeting concludes tonight, we will all be convicted to act, as simply continuing to talk about the problem will not suffice. Thank you all for coming.
Good evening to all. The minister basically has already gave an introductory to what the gang violence reduction team does. There's no adage that says hurt people hurt people. And so many times we have a tendency to deal with things from a reactive standpoint and never really go to the root cause of the situation. You know, one of the things that the gang violence reduction team does is, as he said, those relationships. And one of the reasons for that is so that we can attack, you know, the very root of the problem. You know, sometimes we have a tendency to turn a blind eye to the violence, but yet we turn a blind eye to the very colonial system that has set up certain stuff that nobody wants to touch. We have a tendency to turn blind eye to things that are very, what would I call it, deja vu, that's something that people just don't want to address. And the truth of the matter is, when we start to look at certain things, many of our black families have been placed at a disadvantage even before they started. One of the things that we actually address, you know, in actual the gang violence reduction team, one of them is dealing with understanding the epigenetic markers from our young black people. See, we believe that many of the incidents and everything that's happened comes from transgenerational trauma. And if transgenerational trauma is not addressed, then this thing will continue to repeat. You can lock up somebody today, and tomorrow someone else that wasn't even related will rise up, because the transgenerational trauma exists and it's real. You know, when we start to talk about epigenetic markers, what happens is that from family members, certain things take place and it's actually passed on unto the next generation. And so it's important for us as a people to start to recognize this and to address these very factors that have been going unnoticed for a while. It was a Dr. Vivian Rakoff. He actually was the one that came up with transgenerational trauma. And they actually done an experiment on mice. And what actually happened is that while they had these mice, they allowed this blossom, cherry blossom, to actually be centered around them as they're breathing. And then they took a shock and they started to shock them right on the head. They said that 3 generations down, the offspring, that when they started to release the cherry blossoms without shocking them, they started to react just like they were being shocked. See, I believe that many of our young men and young women are experiencing the same thing. I believe that transgenerational trauma has been passed on, and as the minister said earlier, we can't arrest our way out of this. But we need to address the very root cause. Because if we don't, we can be sure that this thing will rise again. You know, I know many people talk about, you know, when they come to things like this here, well, what is the gang violence reduction team doing? You know, they want quantitative and, you know, data. You know, and the truth of the matter is we can produce that. But even before that, we need something that is qualitative. Because by telling the story so that we can understand exactly what connects to what, it's almost impossible to get the quantitative information that we want. So it's important for us to recognize that as a people, some of us are well-to-do. We're set. We don't even have to look in certain neighborhoods because we're okay. But the truth of the matter is, it's going to take you, people just like you, that can identify that's been there, but also have seen yourself come on, that took the journey and came out. That's going to have to take a young black man and a young black woman to let them know that, listen, this is the way. Our neighborhood, certain things that have been done is done by design, and we ignore it. Why is it that we build houses in certain areas and we put them up 6 feet, 6 stories in the air, and then we cluster them, knowing full well that psychology proves that aggression comes from clustered areas, and then we want them to behave at peace. There are some things we need to address in Bermuda, and until we address it, this problem will continue to go on. I'm not going to go into everything today, because I don't believe it's enough time to sit here and go into it. But I have a passion about it. I've had about 5 or 6 people in my family shot. I've had a brother that not even a couple of weeks ago was chased with a firearm. Had to get him out of here in the last week. What am I saying to you? I'm saying, listen, until we change and break the trait of transgenerational trauma, it will continue. And how do we do that? We do that by, I want to use a therapeutic term because I've got some people in here that deal with it from therapy. The cognitive behavior therapy needs to be done. In other words, we need to change the thought pattern, because that's the only empirical evidence that is proven to show that we can break transgenerational trauma. Thank you.
Good evening. And I want to add my thanks to the Minister's thanks for all of you that have come out tonight, because I think really your presence tonight really is an indication of your concern that you have for our community. The Minister indicated that about 250 sort of overtly gang-connected individuals, right? And these represent those that we know about. There's a larger group of people that are connected, women, younger people that haven't come to our attention just as yet, that perhaps don't have meaningful criminal histories at this moment in time. Certainly, as we reflect on the past, the number of gang-connected persons has notably increased from when we started to use the word gang. We actually, in policing, I can't remember if any of you know, but we used to call them logs, loosely organized groups. And then over time, we progressed to gangs, right? So far this year, we've had 13 confirmed firearms incidents, 4 firearms fatalities, a further 4 firearm injuries, and a total of 6 murders. Since 2009, there have been 77 murders. 31 of those murders remain open. In other words, no one has been charged. Since 2009, 66 persons have been charged with murder, and of those, a further 15 are still awaiting trial. Since 2009, the police have recovered have recovered 70 firearms since 2009. This includes pistols, revolvers, handguns, shotguns, rifles, and component parts. Since 2008, we've made 45,000 arrests. We've done about 50,000 stop and searches, okay? Now, I share these sobering statistics to make 2 points. One, the Bermuda Police Service is out there doing it, all right? We can always do better. We could always do more, but we're out there doing it. Now, the other point, in terms of a law enforcement perspective, the other point I want to make, which may not be readily apparent from the statistics, is that the people we were targeting, say in 2010, are not at all the same people we're dealing with today. From all that effort over the years, what we have is a larger group that are younger and arguably more violent. Clearly, there's a major role for the police to play. The police respond to and solve crimes. Our role is largely in the catching and convicting area. It's what we train for. And if you look at all the equipment and stuff you give us, it's what we're equipped for. But the reality of the matter is that the catching and convicting work does very little to change the fertile conditions that make it ideal for gang members to grow and for community violence to flourish. Catching and convicting will never solve those fundamental issues. And whilst we can keep catching and convicting, more gang members will continue to grow, become more violent, and just become, violence begets violence. Put another way, we can't police our way out of this problem. Communities with far more money, people, and equipment have miserably failed. And the reason is because the roots of community violence are found not in crime, but in the social factors. You see, violence is a social ill. Community violence needs to be seen and tackled more like a health issue, not just a criminal one where enforcement is the most logical answer. Now, I didn't have a chance to speak with Bishop Bean tonight, but we're actually saying the same thing using some subtly different language. Once you understand that violent behavior in communities doesn't happen randomly, it's based, there is a predictable, it's predictable and it's based on known environmental and social factors. When you understand that, you can begin to look at what we need to do, what we can do to stop growing gang members and reduce community violence. Violence is not a symptom of a bad person. Rather, it's a negative outcome resulting from exposure to or the presence of numerous risk factors. You all know this. Why is it that violence is most prevalent in disaffected communities that have less access to education, less educational attainment, less access to the economy, more clustered housing? Why is it, you know this, why does it continually occur there and not in other areas or other communities? Yes, to be sure though, violence is a behavior that some people do. It's part of choices that people make. And there must absolutely be some type of enforcement and consequences. But we desperately need to focus on how people experience violence, the social and economic context or issues that predict whether they do, what happens as a result, and most importantly, what we can do to protect them and reduce the opportunities. A trauma-informed approach, and not just a crime-based approach to violence, focuses on prevention through addressing the known factors that increase or decrease the likelihood of violence. Things like economic stability, education attainment, healthcare access, healthy housing, healthy neighborhoods, and this sort of the general community context and social environment. Now, community members like yourself have a unique insight into the local issues and often have credibility to reach those that are at the highest risk and engage in the work of prevention. And because of this, in other jurisdictions, they've seen tremendous success through credible messengers or community health workers. Bishop Bean is an example of that. This also includes outreach workers, prevention professionals, hospital responders, and violence interrupters. People who go out into the community day in and day out and try to find out who's beefing with who and how we could possibly resolve that through more healthier ways other than violence. These credible community messengers can help young people and families navigate through different systems, resolve differences, and choose alternative paths, and also speak up for the need for more positive resources in the community. The issue of violent behavior is much broader and deeper than the current law enforcement debate suggests. If we want to reduce violence in our community, we must acknowledge that it is predictable and preventable. Violence is never random. Rather, it's like an epidemic, meaning that it spreads and it clusters through exposure. Violence begets violence, or violence begets trauma, trauma begets violence, and the cycle continues to spiral downward. As a community, we desperately need a deeper understanding of individual and communal behaviors, how they arise, and how to maintain them or prevent them, with public health sort of harm reduction being at the center of the enforcement. Community efforts must also focus on the environmental factors such as employment, education, housing, safe spaces, equity, and social cohesion. It's critical that members of impacted communities are deeply involved in the development and implementation of solutions, right? It's no good just doing things to people, right? The people who are most affected need to be involved in developing the things that help. They actually know the problem better than we do, so they need to be involved. Sadly, because we so often think of violence as the sole responsibility of law enforcement and the criminal justice system alone, it cripples us from looking at what are the well-known, predictable indicators of community violence and the work that's needed to address them. Violence is preventable, but we need to focus on the larger societal factors that perpetuate the violence. Now, in closing, I'm confident that we as a community have the resources to bring about big changes. But it will take energy, focus, and commitment. We didn't get here overnight, and we won't fix it overnight. A current, really relevant, I think, good example of some progress is One-Way Deepdale. So you remember that much earlier on this year, there was a number of shootings that were happened at One-Way Deepdale. That community, with some leadership, with some help, came together and basically said, enough is enough. Now, I'm not saying that there's never going to be an incident down there, but if you go down there today, it looks radically different from when it did some time ago. You know, the place has been cleaned out. The people that were causing some challenges there have been displaced a bit, and the community just looks and feels much better. Now, policing have played a small part. We've supported them with our presence, and we've encouraged them. But the changes and the improvements are largely as a result of the community, and they should be very proud. I want to switch gears just in closing one little bit. Crime in Bermuda. There is no crime in Bermuda. I said there's 31 open murders, right? There is no crime in Bermuda that this community cannot solve. The best and most recent example I can give you of that, to make the point crystal clear, was the tragic death of Mr. Gordon. You will recall those recent events. The police attended that scene, his home, and we got there and we said, not sure what happened here. No suspicious circumstances found at the scene. We told you that. And within 24 hours, you said, no. You've got that wrong. That there is something that's happened there. And actually, this is the individual that you should be looking at. And some 48 hours later, we now move from there is no apparent suspicious circumstances to somebody in custody. That is the power of community. And that is the ability of the community to solve every single crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Minister Weeks and Bishop Bean. Let me say, for questions, we're not going to have people to be married to the mic, right? We want everybody to have the opportunity to ask questions, so make your point and let the panel answer. If you got phones, if you know how to put them on mute, put it on mute. If you don't, then turn it off so we don't disturb anybody else. Now, those that are, a little frightened to speak, you can go to the back, get a card, and you can write your question on the card, they'll bring it here, and then we'll ask the question for you. Yes, cousin? If you're gonna make a comment, keep it very brief. And the mics will be, the mic is there, one there and one over there. So the floor is open. Brother Thompson, you're first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks so much for this opportunity. Like everyone else, I'm quite concerned about our community. And once I heard that this was happening, I decided that I would be sure that I would be here. And I certainly want to commend our panelists for sharing with us tonight and making sure that we know that it is a community situation, right? I guess my question is, when are we going to have the next forum, right? Because we've heard lots of information, and I'm imagining that in order for this to really take traction, we're possibly going to have to form, committees, et cetera, and so on to kind of differentiate what's going on. So I'm looking forward to that sense of leadership. So we heard our brother Bean talk about statistics and quantitative and qualitative data. I would have liked to have seen that he said that he could have.
Brother Thompson, respectfully, can you ask the question, please?
Okay, sure. Sorry. What are the other agencies doing to demonstrate their commitment to this cause? We did hear a plethora of other agencies that are engaging in it. I would like to know exactly what they are doing. And one example I would just put out there is education. We did note that it seems to be a connection between those who may not be on grade level and engaging in violence. And I would like to know exactly what that agency is doing to address that. And the other agencies as well, I would like to know exactly what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Thompson. Let's take another question for your answer. Brother Simmons?
You can take a question, because I don't have a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good evening again, everyone. Reverend, that's a good question you asked, what other agencies are doing. What the Ministry of National Security is in the process of doing. We are creating a national strategic plan. And we have been meeting with a lot of different stakeholders. And some of them I see in the audience tonight. So what this national strategic plan is going to do is the umbrella for a lot of the other agencies. Like the other ministries have input into this plan. And in the next 6 weeks, at the most, we will be rolling it out. But in the meantime, what we intend to do also is to have these kind of forums every couple of weeks, probably once a month. The first one we had in June, it was done at Bayless Bay Cricket Club. So now we're here. So we're trying to take the issue to the people, to the community. But in the meantime, we're going to put the plan together as a template that we could develop it as a team. So the other ministries are very much involved in the overall plan.
Any further questions?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brother Dr. Hughes.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I have a bit of a problem here this evening. I don't think that we are addressing the situation the way it should be. For instance, remember when we had community policing, and there were those days when I was a child, they were all Bermudians. So if my son stole your son's bike, and so on, whatever happened, he could come and he deals with both of the families.
Dr. Hughes.
And
wait
wait a minute, wait a second.
Dr. Hughes.
I'm doing a historical thing here, and it's necessary. History is my best subject, and I need it. Please allow me to go on. And we saw a lot of problems with that. Now, how we do expect to have people coming from a foreign nation coming here and doing the job of being a policeman? It can't work, and it's never going to work. And that's a big part of the problem. And let me tell you what I saw one night, about 3 months ago. There was a young man out there dancing, carrying on, using all kinds of bad language, with 2 European policemen with him, and he was cursing like heck. And then I heard this big motorcycle. I said, wait, it sounds like a policeman coming. There was a brother coming, African Bermuda policeman coming. Hey, look, stop talking foolish, man. Sit down, get out. Never mind, gentlemen, just move aside. And they moved aside. The guy come right on down, and they were like friends because they could relate to one another. But you're bringing all these people here from overseas. They can't relate to me and my family. They don't know me. I don't know them. And we are creating a serious problem in this country. And it's only started. It's only started. And it's going to get worse. So this is, we got to go back to slavery, for instance, 200 years. And people were beating up their children. I'm a believer children shouldn't be beaten. They don't come here to be beaten. And people think that, oh, corporal punishment is good. No. The Europeans said that because they wanted us to stay down. They didn't want us to rise. That's the reason why. Violence upon us, not them. On us.
What's the
And
question,
we
Doc?
had to look what we are contributing. A governor here, woman's never been to Bermuda before. She don't know anybody here. And I'm not speaking about her as an individual. I'm talking about the situation that we find ourselves in. And you got people coming from all over the world, coming here and telling me what to do. Let's be realistic.
let me
Wait a minute.
Dr. Hughes.
This is important to me, man.
One second.
I
One
was in
second,
this
Dr.
world
Hughes.
for 84
Dr.
years.
Hughes, 1 second, please. You seem to have a lot to contribute, right? I would ask you to make a meeting with the minister and carry that on with him.
These people are here. They want to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we want some solutions, and I think the best thing to do.
I'm trying to give you some solutions now.
Yeah, but you can't. We ask for questions. They're all.
But I'm just telling people you need to talk to, man. I'm in the community.
I know that. I
All right,
know
they're
you.
gonna let me speak.
You're not going to be all night.
I
Okay?
listen to you people. I'm not criticizing you for anything.
All right,
I'm
President.
giving you my point of view.
Wrap it up.
And
Doc.
that's what
Please wrap it up.
that's what it's all about. You gotta give me a chance to speak. And you know
Yes.
why? Because I'm speaking the
We've got
truth.
many others here.
No. I am talking about me. I represent me, David Hughes. And I'm speaking from the truth. And when you go back to slavery for 200 years, the way they treated us, that thing is still amongst us. And here we are now, bringing all these people here. And I'm not got anything against people coming to Bermuda. But man, it's time for us to sit down with ourselves and solve our problems. And just remember that we had a hard time in the last 200-300 years in this world. And it's time that we took all of this thing. And we could talk, have all the meetings we like. You're not going to change it like that. We've got to bring our people together. Send some of these people back home, for goodness sake. They can't do no good in Bermuda. I want to see my brother come to me and tell me, "Look, David, you're doing wrong." And I will listen to him. They're not going to listen to these people. I'm in the streets. I see a foreign policeman come up, and argument comes up right away.
Okay.
Because he feels he's not getting the best treatment. And then on top of that, look at the number of Bermudans out of work, and we still have all these partners in this
Dr.
country.
Hughes.
Let me tell you, we've got a bigger problem.
Dr.
coming,
Hughes,
brother.
let's wrap
We
it up,
have a
please.
bigger problem coming. If you think it's bad now, you give it a little while longer, and we're going to be in real trouble.
Thank you, Doc.
So I suggest we clean this mess up.
Thank you.
And I'm not talking about my good brother who is the commissioner. He's a Bermudian. I know who he is.
Thank you, Dr. Hughes.
Yes, yes, Burgess.
I was going to say, you can lift it over every now and again.
Burgess.
Dr. Hughes, you're from Hampton Parish. Brother Simmons.
Yeah, give thanks. That's why I said I didn't have a question. I had something to say. I guess everybody has something to say. I'm not going to be long. Okay.
Yeah.
I just like to go. A lot I agree with, things I didn't agree with, but that's natural, right? You know, the Genesis. Randy Horton, some years ago, as a cabinet minister dealing with national security, I had the privilege of speaking before cabinet on this very issue when it first started to rear its head. It's a great sit-in, but right after that, I was charged for the biggest conspiracy of drug importation and kind of like got taken out of the system. You know, I was cleared 3.5 years later, but as a result, it was loss of traction. To put it in perspective, when I first spoke to cabinet, when Randy Horton was the national security minister, violence weren't an issue. In fact, I went to a politician, well-known one, and showed him what's coming. He was trying to tell me, like, what did you mean? I said, these youths are about to act up. And it's not until what happened on Wellington Oval that they started to take it serious. But even then, people were slow off the mark. So here we are now, years later, a lot of deaths. And the only thing I'm happy for is, like, it seems like people are really serious now. They're really doing the homework, because the commissioner of police, who weren't around then, not to any extent, not even weeks, and most certainly, right, so I'm saying, the past, not in the capacity that they are now. So they really have no direct responsibility in this. But I will say that I was there, Randy.
Brother Simmons, let's try to get to the point. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, right?
No,
But I don't want to shut you up.
No.
But let's try to be.
I guess you're gonna have that problem all night.
Yeah, I'm
you know,
aware of it.
Yeah, you're gonna have that problem all night, right? See what I'm saying? And if we can't solve this, you can forget the youths. You forget that. I'm gonna tell you straight. So look, right? Politics. Okay. All right.
Any further speakers? Ma'am?
Good evening, everyone. Too close? Hello?
Go ahead.
I also have issue with the fact that you're putting time limits on this, but I have a couple of questions. One to Minister Weeks. Maybe you should have called this Black Lives Matter instead of coming out to discuss our young people's lives, because with the representation of your party and with the representation of this island, it goes to show you that we're not serious enough. To the commissioner, I read here, if you know something, say something. You're saying that you know who these people are, and you supposed to have had people that were supposed to contact families. But to me personally, I've been doing this for 30 plus years. My son was attacked ever since he was 12 years old. And I have reached out to everybody, and Minister Burgess would be one of them, who directed me all the way to Government House. That's how far I've been to seek help. I have drowned in my own tears because I have cried many a nights. And also, if you know something, I feel that if the police was able to come and reach out to the families that you know of, then maybe some of this could have been resolved. But you had a gentleman that was supposed to be reaching out to people, but he never reached out to me. And I have had articles printed in the newspaper. People here know me. I have 2 teachers that are here, and they can, I'm sure, say that they know me and know I did not come up in a violent type of family or situation. But I cried out for help, and I never got it. So all I'm saying is, let's be real about this. We're putting time limits on what we can say, but I could give you 30 plus years of what has happened to me and who I have reached out to, and no one has reached out to me.
Let me say about time limits. I don't mind you getting up again. I want to give everybody the opportunity to speak, right? And once that happens, you can get back up again. No problem. There's no one up and you can't get back up, you know. It's not about that. And the other thing, let me remind Bermuda that the police, the government is not in charge of the police. The police come under Government House. We can make all the recommendations, ideas to the police commissioner. They don't have to do it. And this is no disrespect to the police. They do not come under the government.
Sorry, Minister, could I just add a little bit of clarity to that?
Go ahead.
Because I think
The budget comes under.
I think
us.
a lot of people in the community don't really understand the relationship that the police have between Government House and the government. So I think it might be helpful very quickly to explain that. So the governor hires and fires the commissioner and the deputy commissioner, and the governor can give certain administrative directions to the commissioner of police. The government has 7 delegated responsibilities from the governor. That include things like finance, training, equipment, community relations, uniform, establishment. I'm missing one. It is the Commissioner of Police under Section 3 of the Police Act that has operational control of the police. There is no one, including the governor, that can order the police to do a particular operation. So I just want to make that clear. Operational independence of the Office of Commissioner of Police and policing in most modern societies is pretty sacrosanct, even in other jurisdictions that don't have a governor. The political machine cannot tell police how to police. Obviously, we work together, right? There's a symbiotic relationship there. But the governor cannot direct police operations, and neither can the government, right? So they can't say, start this operation, stop this operation. We work together. So the minister says, you know, I've got some concerns here. We all work together. The governor says, I have some concerns in this area. What are you doing? You know, what are you doing? And we would have to provide an explanation. But nobody can direct police operations other than the Commissioner of Police.
Cousin, can I say something real quick?
Certainly.
Yes, before we go on, I don't want to lose the lady that just spoke. I want to appeal to her. She could give me her name now or after we finish. I would gladly sit and talk with her and see how I could assist. Oh yeah. Oh, see. Right on. Okay.
As for the question, I was directed to Government House by Minister Burgess. I went to Government House. I didn't get as far as the governor. The deputy governor directed me back to the party. He said he couldn't help me. So he sent me back to the party, which I have spoken to practically every premier, every minister, even had my minister sign my letters, and still no help. So I'm saying, I have a meeting tomorrow. I just thought I would come up tonight just to hear what you have to say, because I only have, again, 1 hour to meet with you tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you, brother.
Good evening. I just wanted to make a few comments, and I made this comment almost 20 years ago after the shooting at Malabar and the incident at Wellington Oval. And I said, as a youth, back then I was much younger, what is there to do? And I said that because when I was in high school, I was in the cadet program, I was the scrum half on the rugby team, I was a bit of a superstar, but the moment I left high school, all of that disappeared. Like I was too old to be part of the extracurricular. The church, youth groups were saying, okay, you're a bit too old to be here anymore. And it's like all of the social support I had in high school just got ripped from underneath me. And then, I struggled individually, socially, and economically, and basically became a target to be recruited by gangs. And they were coming to me and saying, you know what, you can go over there, you can do this apprenticeship, and you'll take them $300 a week. Or you can buy this 8-ball for $400. It's Tuesday. By Friday, you have $800 in your pocket. In 30 days, you'll make more money than you've ever made in your life. Come join us. That's real enticing. But what they don't tell you is in 30 days, you'll have more enemies than you've ever had in your life. You have people wanting to take you out that you don't even know. And how do you combat that? The only way to combat that is you have to create a system where people get involved in these programs from younger, and those programs stay with them into their adult years. If I had never got involved with the marriage program in my 20s, and I know they only deal with high school children now, but if I hadn't got involved in my 20s, I don't know where I would be today, because that rebuilt a lot of the social and I want to say mental stability within me in order to figure out how I'm going to achieve these goals. How am I going to go down the right path? How am I going to stay away from this lifestyle that looks so enticing? I mean, these guys get all the girls. They have the big fancy cars. They have all the jewelry, you know what I mean? They've got big clout in the community. People respect them, you know what I mean? They walk into clubs, they don't even have to pay for stuff. They go backstage with Beanie Man and everything else. So how am I supposed to compete with that when you're telling me $300 a week and you're going to do all the grunt work? It's hard.
Thank you, brother.
I think, thank you very much for that, for sharing that. And certainly I do appreciate that the criminal lifestyle can be attractive as opposed to working hard. There's no reality, but there's no confusing that. For many people, though, if they had a choice between productive members of the society and people who have ill-gotten gains, many of us choose the productive route. And when I talk about looking at some of the fundamental issues that perpetuate community violence and gang violence, certainly economic factors are some factors that we need to look into them. But there is going to be no substitute for hard work, and many of us really do feel good about making a positive contribution to society, even in circumstances where you could maybe have more money by having a criminal lifestyle, but we still choose to be on the right side of the law. We just need to make those choices more attractive and appeal to that intrinsic sense of doing what's right and being a contributing members of society. Plus, whilst it does look attractive, nobody wants to spend their days looking over their shoulder. You might have bags of money in your pocket, but when you are scared about where you can spend it or whether somebody's going to come to target you, that pressure is something that most people don't appreciate.
Ma'am?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is my second town hall meeting. The last one was at Bailey's Bay Cricket Club, and I heard Minister Weeks and Pastor Bean speak. And the reason why I came out tonight, because I wanted to deliberately pick up on a connectedness of the direction of our country. There are 2 points I want to make. There was a mention of clustered areas that sometimes or many times currently lead to aggression. I am a product of a clustered area. I grew up at the top of Court Street called Tills Hill, where you currently see that massive deep yellow complex. Our home was next door. Mommy and Daddy and my 2 brothers and I lived there. Yes, there was violence in the neighborhood. I remember sometimes the police would come and they would fire tear gas into a certain person's house. But most of the people who lived in that area at that time remained connected. If my parents needed to go out, Aunt Rose Jones next door would look at us. There was that connected element. And Commissioner, I heard you speak of the area called Deepdale, where the neighborhood is slowly coming together. I did get a video of that, and I shared it with many, many Bermudians. I was so proud to know that if that can happen there, it can definitely happen throughout our country. The other piece is that I'm going to just speak on is education. And I know you're a principal of a school. I'm still going to say what I have to say. I put in 33 years in that public school system. I am displeased with the way our education system is going. Chop change, chop change. I put in 9 years at Elliott Primary as a P7 and P5 teacher. One of my students was buried last week, Jaquito Burchell. And the Hills program was in place. A teacher was responsible for the Right to Read program, so much so that some of the children who were writing phonetically, by the time they got to my class in P7, they were still writing phonetically. The current Minister for Education is my P5 student from Elliott, Diallo Rebane. I've talked to him about the change. I don't like what's going to happen concerning signature schools. I still have a lot of educator friends in the public school system right now. They are stressed out of their head. They're so happy that they have a moment to breathe and to enjoy our country and the naturalness of our island. Stop changing the public school system. Many of our children fail in it. If the signature schools, that's the direction that this government is headed toward. If the signature schools are so great, the BHS hasn't picked up on it, Salters hasn't picked up on it, Summersfield Academy hasn't picked up on it. What they have is in place. It's been in place for decades. No one's moving toward the signature schools, just us.
Thank you. Yeah, Pastor Bean.
Yeah, with the gentleman that just got up and he was speaking about drugs. And he was talking about the fast money, the bling bling, and so on. There are legal ways that you still can make fast money. Very risky, just like drugs. When you start to deal with Bitcoin, when you start to deal with stocks and bonds, these very same things can actually increase wealth very quickly. It's a risk at it. But many times, I done a class one time in prison, and you'd be surprised, the young men that were involved in drugs, when you start to offer them the skill set that they can actually make quick money. Many of them, embrace it. And so I'm saying that there are some avenues around that we try to encourage young men to get involved with, so that they wouldn't have to go that illegal way, but rather can do things that still stir the passion and everything the right way. Also, Mr. Hughes, you had spoke earlier, and I do believe in culture competence. I think that's very important before you go into any culture. I believe that it's important for you to understand the culture competence. You need to understand the culture. You need to see what you're dealing with. And so your point was well taken. And that's something that we try to do when we go into communities. Thanks.
A question to the commissioner. Mr. Commissioner, you just said no one directs the police. Who directed the investigation into Dr. Brown's investigation? Who made the investigation go away concerning that? I don't know what's this up. Right. What's this? I can't make out the other. Okay.
So let me just turn my attention to that, because tonight's meeting really is about community violence. So I don't quite know how we got in that space, but my answer still remains the same. So police are responsible wholly and solely for investigations in this community. That's the best way I can answer that question.
Any further, ma'am?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, panel. I heard a lot about all the different organizations and everything that needs to be done in the community. But I just want to share my experience. What's working for me, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Pastor Bean said about transgenerational trauma. See, I was brought up in a community that I didn't even realize was as toxic as it was. My community, drinking in the house, smoking was normal. I'm just going to keep it real. That was normal for me. Okay? I didn't know no different. I thought everybody's household had an alcoholic father. I thought everybody's household was okay to drink and smoke. Cool. In terms, I ended up with 3 boys, bringing them up in a toxic environment, not even realizing the damage that I was doing to my sons. So I'm going to keep this on me. Okay? So I thought that it's normal. I had no idea the damage I was doing to my children. I knew the damage I was doing to myself because I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. So I was riddled with drugs for many years. So I thought I was just hurting me, not realizing the damage I was doing to my sons. I said all that to say that when my first son was murdered, it was not about no community. It wasn't about no organization. It was about me.
Yes.
It was time for me to look at me and my part I played in everything. So I didn't reach out, I didn't need, so I had to get help from my transgenerational trauma that I thought was okay to be. Until I found out through counseling how toxic I was and what part I played in not changing or building a healthy environment for my children. So whereas at times I thought I was doing the right thing, I was doing the wrong thing. So I played a very important part in the way my boys turned out today. with that stand, with work done on myself and the grace of God, my mindset is completely different. I no longer tolerate what I used to. I no longer accept things that I thought was okay, when I know today it's not okay, when it comes to me and my household. I'm saying this to say it has to start from us. And I'm not talking about collectively, I'm talking about individually. I'm not talking about getting together as a group and trying to fix them. Let's fix yourself first. Oh, let me keep it on me. Fix me. That's the only way I can see what is happening in this island clearly if I look at me first. Because if I'm healthy, then I see healthy things. But if I'm toxic, I'm not going to see the healthiness in it. So I'm not going to see the reason for it. I'm not going to see why. I'm not going to know why. I didn't see it because I'm unhealthy. So as long as I'm unhealthy, I didn't even see that. But as long as I get some healthiness done and start making me healthy, I can make healthy choices and I can see a healthy view in sight. So I started with me, and it's a work in progress. I now look at my boys and they look at me as someone completely different. The respect that comes out of their eyes when they look at me, when they watch their mother go from this to this. So they in turn start making better choices. Because as long as I was toxic, they thought their behavior was okay because their behavior is toxic. Because they didn't see no different. So once they saw some healthiness in the family and now household, they wanted some of that. And today I can say that they are receiving it. So I'm saying that to say everything, all this is needed. It takes every entity, but first and foremost, it starts with you and the household. It starts, I'm a mother, and I feel I am the prayer warrior in my home. I feel my children, my husband is protected through my prayers. So if I stop praying, my family is doomed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, panel. Minister Weeks, Pastor Bean, Commissioner. First of all, I want to commend the young lady just now, because actually she preceded what I was going to say, because we talked about transgenerational trauma, and it's real. It's real in Bermuda, and I'm coming to you tonight from an educational standpoint because I'm a behavior therapist in the educational system. So I thought it was important for me to come here to, I'm going to say a few things. Not too many people may have questions tonight, but I'm going to say a few things because it's very important. Two people, Mr. Simmons over there and another gentleman said that they had meetings years ago, 20-something years ago. So I just want to make it real to everybody that's in here to let you know that what's happening now, it doesn't just take us as a people individually, but before it used to take a village. We don't have a village anymore. No. So when we talk about transgenerational trauma, let me paint a picture. In 1999, or when Cedar Bridge opened, the first week, 100 boys got kicked out of school. 100 boys. So I go to the office and say, well, what do you think these boys are doing? I talk to Miss Butterfield every week. I talk to Adult Ed every week. The fool, where these boys are good. Let's be real. The good on the street. So if the good on the street, no, I was out of the system. I was in the system for 10 years and I came back here 4 years ago. I'm back 4 years now. So I'm back in the system and it's worse now. So that's why I came to talk, because I've been in the system. I'm in the system. A lot of people read about in the paper or might hear things on the street. But let's be real now. So now we're talking about transgenerational trauma. There's 40-some years that they should be 40-some now, or 40, 41 years old. The children are in primary school. You understand what I'm saying? I'm in primary school now, and I see it at 8 years old. They ain't worrying about the politicians. They're not worrying about the other guys that are doing good. You know they want to take after? The daddies, the grandpas, the uncles. That's what I'm talking about. I'm being real tonight. Because we're going to address those issues, we're going to be real. Everybody wants to be cute about it and push it on the carpet. But we've been doing that for too long. Somebody mentioned God to know. God's not a slap on the wrist. So if you got a slap on the wrist, I can do it again. We have a meeting, years ago, 1998, on board. We talking about just violence. Violence was just popping up. Just violence popping up. But guess what? Tonight, I wish I had the educational minister. Please include the educational minister on this panel here. I'm going to tell you right now. Because any society that doesn't focus on education, they're going to have a problem. Because all you know here, if they're not educated, they're not skilled. Before we are coming out here, if you're educated, you have skill. And we are skilled, we're able to function. Who is going to function on this side about educated and skilled? Somebody tell me here. Somebody tell me. How do you function in Bermuda without education and without skill? You heard my passion tonight because I've been taught this in 1999. I've been taught this in 1999. I had it up to here, I got in trouble, but I'm coming back. I'm back now, I'm back in the system. I'm back in the system, and I had to look within myself and say, well, how you get your in these systems? And I had to think, systems been fading over 30 years. Who works for a company that faded for over 30 years? But guess what? I had to come back. I had to come back because we have to do what's necessary. We just like to talk. I ain't about talk, about action. You know what I mean? It's about action. So what we need to do is focus on uneducated, unemployed, and underemployed. We focus on this, our community will get strong again. And everybody in here right now, I'm looking around. That's what I'm talking because I'm looking around and I'm looking at the edges. We came up in a good educational system. All of us came up in a good educational system. So why are we accepting a system that's been fed in our youth for years and years and years? And I'm talking about because my little students are 40 years old. And I see the children coming up in this here. And we're talking about fixing, Mr. Hughes, you're talking about foreigners. It's going to be much more foreigners. Because look at the skill. Our skilled technicians around here are going to retire. So if you want to be real, there's going to be more foreigners in here because we ain't addressing the situation that we need to address.
Thank you. Let me let Deal. You can go next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Willis Deal. I'm a customs officer by profession. Mr. Minister, Mr. Weeks, I would just like to ask you a question and then make a comment. My question is there any communication between your ministry and the education ministry in terms of what takes place in the schools? The reason I ask you that is because 4 years ago, I was sent abroad to learn the GREAT program, which is the Gang Resistance Education and Training. This program is a program that's taught to the P6 primary schools, and also it's supposed to be taught to the M1s in the middle schools. However, because of COVID, we've lost, I'm going to say 3 years of teaching. So which means to say that for anyone that we may have even had a chance at, we have now lost. And I would like to ask you, Mr. Minister, whether or not it is your ministry's intention to continue this program come this September. This past year, I taught just one primary school. And it's the program that should be in every primary school and every middle school. Then I would like to see us go back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Deal. Yeah, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Minister, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm just fired up, especially after my sister got up here and gave her testimony. I'm a change agent and an empowerment agent. I mentor young girls, and I've done it for 15 years here. And it gives me great pleasure to expand my charity's ministry. My charity is Phenomenal People, and we seek to do good things in the community to build up our people, especially our youth. So I'm taking this opportunity to proclaim that each one of us can do one thing, can do something. My thing in the community was, my contribution was to write a book, and it's called, and the question is, who's your daddy? And the subtitle is 12 Steps to Rescuing the Next Generation from Father Absence Syndrome. I do believe that father absence plays a very big part in this, getting us to the place we're in right now. Take these off. Worse still, there's evidence that shows that the slippery slope that we're on is very steep, and that hand is stretched out and passing the repetition baton back into the next generations. We've heard it. Therefore, I affirm that we will make a change starting now, and that's what we each must do. My book alerts us to the perils, which are well documented, and invites each one of us to become aware of where we are doing further harm to each other, and especially to our children. First, we must heal ourselves. And so however we can get help through programs and minister, that's something I would love to talk about, is programs for the local people to get help. And we must commit to love and nurture one another, particularly our children. My book has 12 steps that takes us to a place of awareness, forgiveness, restoration, unity, respect, support, and love. My clarion call goes out to all in leadership and influence over young people. And this takes us to grandparents, parents, family members, and then the stakeholders at large, educators, etc., to heal our hurts, biases, and divisions. And let's unite for Bermuda's children. Let's agree to do no further harm by modeling positive and restorative behaviors to our youth. Most importantly, nurture our children and prioritize our kids. And in my role as president of the charity Phenomenal People, I am offering 2 programs, fatherhood workshops to teach individuals the characteristics of being an effective father. This goes for fathers of all ages and those who may be considering becoming a father. I'm even going to take this a step further and invite mothers to register in a separate workshop, of course, because I believe that it can only benefit women to understand what an effective father looks like. When we get this educational process in place, I believe these workshops that commence in the fall will make a huge difference. And then there's a chat adventures, which is children and dads' time together. And it's an outdoor bonding initiative that is fun and wholesome for both dad and child. These 2 programs are offered through generous donors to my charity. And so I want to get something out there that is real, that can help us. I am committed to use my skills, tools, and the platform I have to help my beloved island of Bermuda. We all can make a difference. Let's fill the registration slots up for these 2 programs to capacity. And I guarantee that over time, we'll see changed people and a changed community. My website is phenomenalpeoplebda.com. The books are available at Brown & Co., and I have a few here for afterwards. But again, Minister, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share and to help my people. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I came here this evening. Many of you may recognize me, Shawnette Sumner. I've done more forums and meetings and radio talk shows and everything you can shake a stick at. This bothers me. I am one of many Bermudians who are now feeling a sense of hopelessness on this island. I feel that I have done a lot to help with the solutions, etc. I'll tell you about that in a few seconds. However, I'm feeling a sense of hopelessness because there's a lot of talk and very little action. Like Brother Joe, I spent 20 years in public education, and I was complaining about some things and being called cynical. Everything that I and my colleagues were complaining about, we now see in full force. I then spent some time operating my own school, but I've spent the last 10 years in our correctional facilities as the education officer. And to hear their stories, thank you, Nikki, for what you shared. You're one who managed to find a way. But what about those that have not? And we have a lot. When I sit down and listen to the young men's stories, as Jill spoke of, kicked out, usually around S1 or S2. Where are we kicking them out to? Our schools are not working. And people who know me know that I will often say what other people think, and they're too afraid to say. They're not working. So we need to find a solution to fix that because they're not working. What's going on in our prisons is not working. I can sit here and tell you all right now that if we want to fix these problems, we need to think about what Nikki just said. Because while our prison population is not that great, we have approximately 45 of our people serving life sentences. And that stops the family. It stops the family. There's so much more that I could say, but I will end by saying this. It is difficult for people to see something and say something. Bermuda is small. The confidentiality, I mean, within seconds, WhatsApp is giving us information. People are not comfortable stepping up to speak because guess what? They could very well be the next murder victim just for opening their mouths. I am very disheartened at what's happening in my country. I will continue to do my part. Unfortunately, I'm about to leave all those guys behind as of next week because of an age requirement. But it pains me. And we have approximately 7 little ones, and I'm calling them little ones because they're real young, who are awaiting trial. That could be our next set of 7 lifers. We have got to stop this and stop throwing our young people away and pushing them off this island. It is sickening. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother, yes. Can I turn again?
Yeah.
Hang on. Yeah, 1 second. Let me let the panel answer some of this.
Yeah, cousin, thank you. If I may, I didn't have much questions. I enjoyed the dialogue and the comments. I just want to say that.
Is it, hey, cousin, up top, the mic's, this is the mic. Is that a mic? Here's yours, Mike.
Yeah, what I start to say is that, okay, there was not any questions. That's a lot of valuable comments.
Probably should hurl it to your mouth.
There were not any comments. Look, Let me show, because I think I have a better picture.
Come up here.
Yeah, okay, sounds better?
Yeah.
Okay, what I was saying was that,
She wasn't there.
there was not many questions, but it's a lot of good comments, and this is what we came here for. I'd like to start with Ms. Frederick Fox. Her testimony was heart-rendering, because that's exactly where we need to go. We have to start off by looking in the mirror and knowing where we fit in this spectrum that we're trying to take back our country. Not everybody is at either one end or the other end of the spectrum. But look in the mirror and find out where you fit. To Mr. Joe, as an education therapist, that is where we need to have people on the spectrum, man, because we cannot fix this without taking a hard look at education. Education is a must, and we have to be real for ourselves as a government, as a country. You know, we have to be real for ourselves, and we have to answer that question that when our young man nowadays get kicked out of school, where do they go? In our generation, there was always a place to go to learn a skill, to get a job. Some guys used to say, and everybody knows that who's a certain age, that when we were in our teens and 20s, if you got expelled from school or even fired from a job, before you got home that day, you had a job. All you had to do was go on the next job site or walk into a shop, but those days are gone. Now, I'm trying to go by memory. The other person, I'm the lady right here, Margaret. Yes, and Margaret, I'm glad that you tell everybody about your website and your book. It sounds interesting. Everybody has a role to play, and that's your contribution, because we can't fix the guys without fixing the girls.
Hello.
You know, and they go hand in hand. You know, it's like trying to fix something and send it back home into the mess. So thank you for your contribution. To Mr. Deal, before I take my seat, Willis, you too. Well, to Mr. Deal, before I take my seat, he asked about the GREAT program. Well, actually, our ministry is working closely with the Ministry of Education, and Bishop Beans can talk more about the GREAT program and how his team are working closely with education and in our schools to help do their part.
Mr. Deal, what happened, as you would know, basically was put on hold because of COVID. And so in actual fact, the books are being ordered right now from one of our team members, where they're supposed to actually start in the school in September, God willing, providing the situation with COVID. So it's definitely on the books. We are in the schools daily, from primary to middle to high. We're in the schools. One of the recruiting grounds is the schools. And so building a relationship with the students, the parents, it gives us an avenue to direct them into the right pathway. So we do that there quite regularly.
Ms. Spence?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to really speak more about what is being done. Because a lot of times we say nothing's being done, nothing's being done, nothing's being done. I beg to differ. I, along with my team, have been doing the work that we do for just over a decade. My first experience was with Shonda Jones, which I think might have been one of the earlier cases. Prior to that, I really didn't understand the depths of what families go through when someone is shot and murdered. But 12 years next month will make it a year when my son-in-law was shot and murdered. And a year to that date, my great-nephew was shot and murdered. So I don't just stand here tonight talking about this. We have lived it and we have relived it. My honest thought tonight is they need to know what's being done. There's a lot being done in this country. Nikki, with all of her pain, all of her frustration, all of her hurt, started a group called Mom Bermuda for mothers to get together, to talk, to cry. They continue to meet weekly in the midst of their pain. Family Learning Center, been around for years. They have our babies. They work with our families, big brothers and sisters. Patrina and her team, they are mentoring those children. And the list goes on and on. So tonight, I want to talk about what is being done. Yes, we can do better, we can do more. But Lord forbid if these organizations close their doors tomorrow. Lord, help us if we don't have these organizations still available to our community. And all volunteer, all volunteer. So tonight, I just wanted to let you know that there is a lot being done. The police department, we've worked with them through this whole process. We've given them information, they've implemented some of our ideas. Both governments, UBP, OBA, PLP, we've seen change. We've seen children put down guns and go to Bermuda College. We've seen mothers fight to save their children in spite of what has happened to them. And somebody needs to tell those stories. Because we can become so overcome with all the negativity, with all that we see in front, but there's a whole army in this country that shows up every week. There's a whole army in this country that gives money. They're called donors, they're called sponsors. They're called people that are providing what we need to keep our programs going. Pastor Bean, Bishop Bean and his team, very limited resources at times, but they show up. I don't know if you've ever been to the hospital when a shooting takes place to experience what many of you have no clue happens. You're sleeping. We're down there, our community is reacting, crying, kicking, cursing. They're hiding. They're in shock. And it's Pastor Bean and his team providing the support that they can give. So tonight, Minister, Commissioner of Police, and Bishop Bean, I want to say thank you. I want to say, I can throw you under the bus. I can tell you all the things you're not doing right. I can accuse you and I can do all of that. But what is that going to do for the 24 families I'm trying to help? What is it going to really do? And so I'm here tonight to encourage you. There's something that everybody can do. You can show up. You can say, Ms. Spence, do you need a volunteer to help with school clothes, or can I pack a book bag? Whatever. We have all been given gifts, talents, and abilities, and they're not all the same. I'm glad my former principal is here tonight. He knows my story. My mother was an alcoholic. My dad left when I was 5. I've been in every foster care home in this country. Been used, abused, kicked down these steps, arm broken, black eye, and what? My mama said that's no excuse not to be successful. It was not tolerated in our house. What am I saying tonight, Bermuda? It does take a village. Yes, it does. But we need to be able to speak freely. Nikki, I love your truth. Here's some data that I want to share with you tonight. And this is what disturbs me. 100% up until last year of the men that were shot and murdered in this country are Black. 100%. 100% of the children that we service who are left behind from the gun violence are Black. 100%. 100% of the men serving life, which is what, 35 years, are Black. If that data doesn't move us, shake us, nothing will. What am I saying tonight? Yes, it's our problem. The data shows it. And there are many reasons why. I'm here to tell you tonight that when we had to take my son-in-law's body to Jamaica and bury him in the ground, I was in the place where I was like, I ain't doing this no more. I ain't doing no more community outreach. I was hurt. I was angry. I was confused. What I had to tap into was my faith. You can call it whatever you want. His name is Jesus. I ain't making no apologies. Here's the testimony right here. Or whatever your faith is. And I'm saying that because one of the most important schools you can send your children to is Sunday school. That's where you get your foundation. That's where they learn how to pray. So when somebody's trying to sell them drugs or put them into some negative experience, I've got something to grab onto. So tonight I'm here to tell you that there are people that are doing a lot of things, and our services are for free. Everything we do, there's no cost attached. Why? Because we know our clients can't afford it. Our mothers and families can't afford grief counseling. What, $75 an hour? Are you kidding me? So we have to raise the funds so they can get the help and support that they need. I'm saying tonight, Bermuda, I have been to these meetings from the beginning. I keep showing up. That's what you can do. There's a lot of organizations around here that need your help. There are things that we can do. Just call them up and figure out what's going on. Right now, we are servicing 24 families. Some of these children were actually in the mother's womb and the fathers got shot, so they never even saw their faces. But I'm here to tell you that by providing the support, we started showing up just to show up. And then a reformed Crip gang member said to me, Ms. Fenn, you need to become certified. You can't help these people by just praying for them. You can't help them by just showing up. You have to become certified to deal with their grief and their loss. So I became certified. And so that's what we do. When that phone rings 2 o'clock in the morning, we get up out of our beds, leave our husbands and our families, and we go in that war zone. And we stay until the sun comes up. And we go to court with these families. And we stay with them through the funeral. And we stay when the court case comes up 2 years later. What are you doing? We are doing a lot. We make a lot of sacrifices every day. And you know it's worth it because we see these kids getting good grades. We have a young man who traveled last year to the best football camp ever. We see these young girls feeling worthy and of self-worth. So tonight, I only came to talk about what we are doing. Always room for improvement, always room to learn something new. But tonight, I challenge you, pick up the phone, call a number of organizations on this island that are doing stellar work. Offer your help, your gifts, your talents, and your abilities. Thank you.
Ms. Spence, I want to thank you and all the others that are out there doing this job, difficult job. So we thank you for your commitment to this.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, panel. First of all, let me thank Sister Gina and Sister Nikki for their remarks tonight. I'm new to this, and I'm glad for this open forum. 2 years ago, my son was murdered by his son. Those of us who feels it, knows it. Okay, all of you around who might say you understand, but unless you go through it, it's not an easy thing to have to go through a murder or a stabbing where someone has been murdered or stabbed to death, and especially when it comes to us as mothers, after carrying these children for 9 months and then help someone to take their life, it really hurts. So what I am saying is that we do have places around, because when I was at the hospital after attending the scene of my son's murder, I was met by the Moms program, Moms of Bermuda, and I thank God for Moms of Bermuda, because I would have been totally lost and devastated. I was devastated as it was to know that my grandson killed my son. And that really hurts. It hurts because it's two I'm lost. My grandson's up incarcerated, up in Westgate, and my son's in the grave. His daughter now has to be taken care of. So us that feels it, we really know what it is like to go through it. And what I am saying is that us as mothers, especially mothers, we know that our children are changing. We can't say that we can't see the change from them, because you can. We can see the changes that our children go through, the stages that they go through. And when they go through certain stages and you see that they're being destructive to themselves, why don't we get them some counseling? Don't wait till the police or government tells them that they're going into counseling. By then, it's too late. It's really too late. And what I'm saying is, as mothers and fathers, and not talking about absentee fathers, I've seen fathers that's been incarcerated still show love to their children from jail. So I don't want to hear about this absentee fathers, because when I came along, some of these like to help fathers, but guess what? Good productive citizens of Bermuda. Good productive citizens, okay? Why? Because we have a village. Today's village, I would not allow today's village raise my grandchildren. Why? All you keep on saying village? This village today is toxic. It's very toxic, so you better be very careful who you allow to help you with your children. And what I want to ask the question now is this. What is happening in the school system when it comes to young boys fighting over and over and over? I had to go see the bridge the other day, and I thank God for Pastor Bean, because he met me there. I have this individual that was suspended twice within the month of May for fighting, and the same two guys are fighting each other. Same two young boys between the ages of 15 and 16 fighting each other. What is set up? We need to have something set up in the school system, I think, for disciplinary action to be taken, or something has to be set up so that these children, because this is where it started, Cedar Bridge, and it's going to go from Cedar Bridge, because these little children used to go to Sunday school together. But they know of Cedar Bridge, but they did, fighting each other. And we're just sweeping it on the carpet. No, it's got to be something. When I went up there, the principal said as well, if the children don't want to talk, no, that's when they're going to talk. They're going to talk because you got the parents involved. Don't be afraid to call the mother. If the mother don't want to answer, call the father. If not, what's going to happen? They're saying two. A couple of years later, one of them's going to kill the other. So it needs to start. We need to educate them with this social violence and stuff that's happening in our school system. And I notice it mostly at Cedar Bridge. You don't see other schools in the social media. Every time you pull up the Cedar Bridge children, Cedar Bridge. Why is it that we can reach these children? If they need mentors, if they need people up there to monitor lunch breaks and breaks, ask parents if they would like to come up and give a helping hand. But I'm telling you, if we don't break them now, parents, mothers, your heart's gonna bleed. If you don't break them now, your heart's gonna bleed later.
Let me get others that haven't spoken before I get you again. Yes, please.
Ms. Rayner?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Technically, right now in the high schools and primary schools, we do restorative justice and also conferencing. So we use a lot of our time up the schools actually making sure that we can build that relationship with them. We also meet them at times when the parents are not around. So while you saw me with your family member, when you're not around, we build relationship to redirect them and to do what we're going to do. As a matter of fact, they actually done was a survey that was actually done at Cedar Bridge, and the violence, to be honest with you, has dropped by 65%. So I'll see if I can get that to you so that you can actually see it. So we have seen a turnaround in Cedar Bridge alone with violence dropping, and also with the young men being more open and responsive to the advice that has been given to them.
We have 15 minutes left. We want to let those that haven't spoken first, and then you can go after they've
Only
spoken.
2 minutes, man.
Ma'am, you can come.
Let me get through, I gotta go.
No, let the other speak first
man,
after you.
all right.
Lady, ma'am, can you come up?
I was wasting my point, man.
No, let's.
Why you gonna give me 2
We
minutes?
want to
man?
let those that haven't
You keep on
spoken.
taking me from today? You could have come before. Come on, man.
Come on, use. Let's not. Yes, they do too. Go ahead.
Hello, what you want me to go? You want me to leave? Sounds like it. No, let them.
I would never invite you to leave. Never do that.
But she wasn't here. I'm here.
So right there, they've been standing right. Go ahead.
And you're the ones that said, come here and do it. And also you said you could speak more than once. Now you're going to another story.
No, I said after.
I can't deal with it.
Others have spoken when they.
Keep quiet. Keep quiet.
Go ahead.
We instruct from here.
Come on, we only got a couple minutes left, man.
Well, I only wanted a minute. And it's important.
Well, answer, go ahead.
No, let me say it anyhow. This country is not run by no Bermuda government. It's run by the Crown. And this is a Crown colony. And people got to understand that this country is controlled from overseas. And here our people could be in the house until 12 o'clock at night. And when that bill goes to the house, goes up to the government house, they just tear it up, put it away to a basket if they don't think it's good for the Crown. You must understand that. We don't run this country. We don't run it. And I appreciate what these people have been saying all night, the social part of it. I appreciate that. But it has to be governed by the country. And we don't have a government.
Mr. Hughes, we're talking
Don't
about,
you understand
we're talking about violence.
Because don't care how long they stay in the house, when they get up to the government house, that lady could turn it out, put it away.
You can't cut that.
Ain't worth nothing. Why don't you let the people know that we are not there, man?
Mr. Hughes, ma'am.
We don't have any power in this country.
Okay.
We don't have a power.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
We have a house of assembly, and you don't heard the governor say anything about house of parliament, because we don't have a parliament.
Thank you.
Well, colony.
Yes.
Why don't we teach the people right, man?
Mhm.
And many of the people that I've got, pastors out in the street, 300. What's the parliament? All these things are in my document.
Thank you, sir.
People do not run the country.
Ma'am.
I'm not trying anything against you people. We are all at fault. We have to take this country over and become an independent territory. We are going to decide what happens in this country. And until then, we're just wasting our time.
Ma'am,
The Crown is in charge.
good evening.
Just
Listen, no one is crazy people from England.
thank you for the time. First of all, I just want to express my sincere condolence to all the families here that have been impacted by what we consider to be crime and violence in Bermuda. I have had interactions from YouthNet 2003, and YouthNet having been an arm for our primary, middle, and high schools was supposed to be one of the impacting organizations for youth. And I look at it now, 22 years later, having said that, we poured money was poured into YouthNet. However, we have to be honest, and the honesty to our children in Bermuda has not been real. The hypocrisy that we have had for years, whether you want to call it black and white, our blacks have enraged our children as well. And so there's a song that Lucky Dube said, we're the victims every time. And you have to go listen to that song, Victims, because we look at it as the police is going to fix this, the Ministry of Education is going to fix this, and as individuals, we have not looked at ourselves. And in my opinion, from our women coming out of Jamaica, knowing that it's considered to be the highest violent, corrupt, everything you want to call it, that's bad. I've grown there, haven't seen the violence, but knows it. And as women, we're going to now challenge ourselves to raise our children. And I'm not getting emotional right now, because I have a 21-year-old son. And if I had dropped the ball, regardless of who the father is, I am going to be responsible if it's at the graveside I'm standing or in court. And as female, I'm going to ask us if Gina has it, whatever Shanette Sumner has, whatever Margaret Gold has, it will not be in paperwork. We have to be practical with our children in raising them. And if my son comes in with funds that I know he's sitting on the wall, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to tell a police officer I know nothing of it. And because we are not honest, we're seeing this. And you have to admit it. It's a small number of our youth that are involved. Why is it 22 square miles? We cannot, or is it that we do not? Because it benefits people.
Our prisoners benefits the big business where the food goes up every day. They get medical treatment for free on my dollar, my tax dollar. And we have to know, because it's not that we don't know, we put that Persian rug down and we sweep all the mess under it. And I keep telling my Bermudian friends that Jamaica may have this straw mat, and it's easy to push it across the floor. Bermuda has had a Persian one with more muck under it than we can believe. And we have to move that Persian mat, that Persian rug, whether it's in the Ministry of Education or anywhere, in order to really face the muck and we all clean it. So whether or not you want to blame everybody else, at the end of the day, you're going to sit and you're going to face your own self in that mirror to say, what did I do that whether contributed negatively or positively to all of this? And Bermuda is 22 square miles. And I truly believe from the beginning of moving here 2000, that academics, or not just academics, knowledge
Can I ask you to
is
wrap up?
easy
Only
for
got 8
us to
minutes left.
handle. Easy for us to handle, because the Minister of Education can see every classroom for the school year. Be interactive with the teachers that you say you lead, and the same goes for the Minister of National Security. Just be honest, Bermuda.
Thank you.
Good night, Bermuda. I dashed her to make sure that I made this meeting was very important. What I want to share with you is my experience of going through with the violence that's in Bermuda. And what I want to tell you is that it is not about where you're from, back of town. If you're at Tucker's Point, it can come from two parents that's working hard. The child could have every single thing that you can provide for them. So they have lack of nothing of like that. They can go to school. They can give them a good education. They're smart. There's no other deficiency that you can possibly figure out. But my experience was this here, it's the time. What I noticed that is that spending the time with your child is more important. So even though that we are trying to pay mortgage, provide a better lifestyle for them, we're losing out on the time of actually guiding them. Once I had figured that out, I saw a tremendous turnaround in my own family. And I can say that with prayer, Pastor Bean, and all of that, everything I can see that came to light. When it comes from with education, what I found out is that we have hurt people trying to take care of hurt people. And when I dealt with my own hurt as a parent, I was able to reach out and deal with my son's hurt as a child. And I can say that sometimes the hurt and the anger could come from little things that is overlooked in the education system. For instance, if the child's dyslexic, they have a tendency to act out and they can't really cope or function well in our society. And these little things being overlooked causes anger inside the young person. So they have no other choice to express their anger. But we need to talk to them to let them know that if you're not seeing something properly, if you are hard of hearing, because it could be a hearing problem, whatever deficiency or whatever disability that they may have, that we're able to recognize it early and fix it so they're not frustrated. So what I found out from my own family, that it was frustration, and I never knew it because I was too busy trying to make ends meet, too busy to give them all that I felt that I didn't have when I was younger. But I lost my son for a good while. So I want to thank God that I was recognized that, and I just wanted to share it with everyone else, that it is the time that you put in with your children, because if you allow the social media, the TV, the tablet to raise them, this is what you're gonna get. Thank you.
Thank you. We got final 3 speakers. We only got 3 minutes, but you can go ahead, sir. Is it that lights in my set? Reverend.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Reverend Michael Barkley.
Good.
Commissioner, Mr. Weeks, Bishop Smith. I'm here to tell you about there are some things going on that's helping these young men. I used to work for John Bradley and Son, and I saw what was going on out in the street, so I asked my employer if I can have 6 weeks off without pay. And I went out and started a program with the young people, the young gangs. And I met with gangs from all over the island and talked with them and counseled them, trying to help them get jobs and straighten out. God showed me this, what I did. And I did it with God's help. And I was warned by my own family that I would get shot or killed. Nothing ever happened to me. No threats, no nothing. And I talked with gang members, the toughest gang members in Bermuda. Some of them were killed now. I remember a young man in Somerset, he was a prison officer, 23 years. He told me, Reverend Mike, they ain't gonna listen to you. His son was in the gangs. When I went to Somerset at Cambridge Breaches, and I talked with his son and his nephew and a few other members, the next time he talked to his son, he said, hey, did the Reverend Mike come talk to you? He said, yeah, he came talk to you, we were listening. So next time I saw that young man, he said, Reverend Mike, keep talking, but listening. So there is listening. When God tells you to do something, get up and do it. I'm not going to be a journalist. I'm not going to run and hide. I get up and did it. And I did it all over this island. Just recently, I spent 10 weeks in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer. I nearly died worrying about these games. But I came through, and God said, no, Mike, not yet. There's more for you to do. I came out of the hospital. Couldn't walk when I came out of the hospital. My grandson came to my house every week, every day, and taught me how to walk again. But I came out and walked, and back out in the street again, got my bike, and going out in the street again, talking to the game. I went to all the churches that I could think of in the island and asked for their prayerful support. And all of them said yes. So I got the prayerful support of all the churches, all the denominations. Because we are together in this island. We all are together. We never know where we come from. I performed a marriage a couple of months ago, a white man from Australia. His grandfather and my grandmother were brother and sister. So they go to show that we're all related. So they all take heed. So we all belong to one another. We are God's children. Pray for each other and love each other and move on and try to make this Bermuda a better place.
Thank you, Reverend.
Evening, panel. I just want to piggyback on this gentleman's, what he's saying tonight. I'm a bit disheartened to see that there's nobody looking like me here tonight. There's a couple white faces, but there should be more. With regards to my background, I'm an actual chartered land surveyor by trade. I'm still a chartered land surveyor. I set out the building that we call Cedar Bridge back in the day. So I knew the fundamentals with regards to that school. I looked at the plans. It's way too big for the jurisdiction that we're in, 21 square miles. That's my own personal view. Berkeley, I did some work on Berkeley as well. It's a mega school, and with the environment that we have in such a small community, I do feel, and I felt back then that the structures were too big. I think when the gentleman was saying about people coming in from away, we've got internationals coming in, giving their own disposition on how our structure should be, when we should have more Bermudians that actually can give their intellect and knowledge and background of the history of Bermuda and what was going on, because it gets lost in the drawings and the actual infrastructure that people are trying to implement. Did it for many years, and I just, my son turns 12 today, and with regards to it, I'm not there celebrating it with him. I'm out here because I care for my community. I care for my fellow Bermudians, my sisters and brothers here. I know quite a few of you. Nikki, God bless you, because I was there. With regards to what you were going through, I feel that pain and that angst in people's faces and how they talk, and it's unfortunate, but we've got to do something better than the things aren't working. We know they're not working. That's why people are getting emotional and they're upset. And I can feel that, and through my heart, if I can help out anyway, I'll be there for you. And I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing. God bless.
Thank you. Final speaker on the floor.
Good evening. My thought goes out with Nikki, and what she's saying is so true. And that's what I come across in Bermuda. we have a lot of negative people. 65% of Bermudians is in a negative field. We have 35% of Bermudians that have done well with their children and they moved on gracefully with the knowledge of their parents that have paid attention. But 65 of us has been brought up in the correct. And when it's like that, then what you're producing is when you go out, you're looking for love, but you're looking for love between your legs, which produce kids, babies. And when these babies are born, they're born they're born innocent at the hospital. But when they come home, that's where the negative starts. And it's very, very painful. You heard the stories as they grow. And that's what I've been seeing around here. So with the negative, something has to be done with that there. Because all our negative kids, 65% that's doing wrong is stealing, killing, whatever they're doing, drugging or whatever it is, leads to negative things. And they didn't ask for that, but it was brought up in it. So, and when they go to court, what do the magistrate say to them? Magistrate, they know, police knows what the background, how the background was, but are they willing to help them? They're not. So what they do, they throw the key away on them. They've already been hurt. They've been born in a mess, born innocent, come home in a mess. And what does society do when they end up in court or can't make it in this world? Negative on top of negative. And this does a lot of damage to someone that's already broken. And instead the magistrate say, hey, you know what? I know you got a story to tell me. What's your story? You know, tell me what's happening in your life. Each of those negative person has a story to tell, but nobody listens. And that's when the judge and everybody throws them aside and kick them to the curb. My heart goes out to all of them because I was brought up in the crack. Because 65% of black people in the crack in Bermuda. Percent of black people in the crack in Bermuda. Now, another thing I
Thank you.